Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
You're listening to Bloomberg Businessweek with Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec on Bloomberg Radio.
Bloomberg News reporting out today that Europe's high travel costs are driving Americans away, and that really travelers from around the world are feeling priced out of Europe. And as we said, those big spending Americans are no exception. It's a great thing to ask about with our next guest, as are their company earnings, which came out last night. We welcome Trivago CEO Johannes Thomas, joining us from Dusseldorf, Germany. Trivago ADRs, by the way, are down about 4% today, but they are up about 35% here in 2025. Johannes, good to have you here. Welcome. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. I appreciate that you're having me around. Thank you.
Well, it's nice to be talking with you. Remind our world about kind of your customers, your base customers in business, and the global view that you see when it comes to travel.
I think base customer is the travel world. It's a 1.5 trillion market in size, so pretty exciting. It's also growing 5 to 10% a year. So a big and growing business. And Trivago is a leading brand across the globe in travel. And we have been working on the last 1.5 years to reestablish the brand after a near-death experience during the pandemic.
How's that refresh going right now? What can you point to show a recovery from that near-death experience as you described it?
Yeah, I was returning to the company 1.5 years ago together with a leadership team, and we all have been folks that we were at Trivago for a decade, brought it to the IPO. And then during the pandemic, we left basically. And then out of the pandemic, the company didn't come strong. And we think that is a result of low investment during the pandemic. Trivago is built as a brand, so brand investment is important. If you invest into a brand during a period where nobody's traveling, it's pretty inefficient. So there was not a good place to invest in brand. And then after the pandemic stopped in around beginning of 2022, Trivago was pretty conservative in investing into brand. Other companies basically recovered in size, other travel companies. Trivago didn't. And that's when one of the founders gave me and others a call if we want to come back to bring back a blueprint that has proven successful. And the last 1.5 years, we worked hard on getting the company back on track. When we arrived in Q2 2023, we were shrinking 14%. Now we've stabilized and brought the business back into growth last quarter, and we see a strong double-digit growth in Q1, which we are very excited about.
So talk to us about what you are seeing in terms of travel demand specifically and how that compares with a year ago. So in other words, is travel up? You guys just reported your numbers, and you did break it down into various regions of the world. So give us some perspective, a little bit more insight into those earnings, because investors seem a little bit disappointed here. But talk to us about what you are seeing and how that plays into your business, whether it's more upbeat than a year ago, or if you're seeing, consumers, travelers being a little bit more cautious.
Yeah, so I think last year was the year where we exceeded 2019 levels quite substantially already. So travel is hot. People want to travel. It's exciting. They want to spend and experience the world. It's the number one discretionary expense people have. Yeah, and that is what continues to be true. We see travel strong across all segments, being at the US, being at Europe, rest of the world, Asia, pretty strong travel demand. We see prices slightly up, but I think at fairly consistent levels. So travel is strong, and we expect it to be a strong year, maybe an even stronger year than last year.
Hey, Johannes, curious about sentiment just across Europe right now and what you're seeing as a European CEO. Or CEO, I should say, in Europe. We've spoken quite a bit to folks in the last couple of weeks who've returned from Davos. And two of them have told us that there is just a feeling of, optimism when it comes to American CEOs and CEOs of American companies, but a feeling of pessimism when it comes to the way that CEOs of European companies feel. Certainly there's some generalizations in there, but I'm curious about your view.
Yeah, I'm skeptical about the level of bureaucracy and the pace of execution of German companies as well, and European companies as well. there's just a lot of regulations and things that make companies slow here. I think we try to be very different, having a growth mindset, fanatic learning mindset as a company. We are in the digital space. We are operating at global scale. We do TV marketing campaigns in more than 20 markets. We operate in more than 40 markets. So it's not for us a European or German game. But overall, I think Europe has to amp up and has to put a mindset in place where hard and smart work is needed to be successful. And I think there needs to be a mindset shift in Europe. Otherwise, it will be a decade that is difficult for the region.
But are you seeing? So you're not seeing that weakness across your platforms, or you are seeing it?
We are not seeing it in our developed European segment. The travel is weak. I mean, people have money. It's not that there's no money in this region. It's more a question of, can you keep growing, or will you be outgrown from other regions over time? They have still good budget to invest into travel, but what destinations will you go to in the future? Hotels are 30% up compared to pre-pandemic, and people are feeling that. And the number one struggle for travelers is security and safety. Number one, geopolitical issues. People stay closer to home. And number two is price. They increased expensive, and that's also true across the world. Price pressure, because travel became so expensive, is a big challenge for travelers.
So Johannes,
and for Europeans, it will be even more.
Yeah. Apologies. What would you say is the way for European regulators to sort of decrease bureaucracy, to encourage innovation, to create real competition, so there isn't this lost decade?
I'm not an expert in this topic. I just think less rules, more freedom to people, so they can actually take decisions themselves. If I have somebody else taking decisions for me all the time, I stop taking decisions myself, and I think that's where a lot of collective intelligence is being lost. So I think that would be a good start, just to for every rule or legislation you put in place, you kill 5, and then you maybe get to a way where it's less wild of regulation. Yeah.
Johannes, before you go, just got about 35 seconds here. Geopolitics, trade wars, tariffs, all of this plays out in global financial markets, plays out in the FX market, which can certainly impact whether or not a consumer feels like their currency will go farther along. How is all of this impacting travel demand, if at all? And again, only got about 30 seconds.
So I think travel hugely correlates with GDP. So it depends where the economy is going, whether travel will be well off or not. And it's rather reacting quickly on it. People delay demand, delay investments. Otherwise, we see that people already book early in advance to make sure they get a good deal. They compare prices, and that's where our product fits pretty well into the proposition that users are looking for.
Got it. Johannes, thank you. Johannes Thomas, Trivago CEO.